Okay, so are you curious about if Silicon Valley's insane housing market is finally like cooling down thanks to remote work?
Hmm.
We did a deep dive into all the data and trends, and trust me, things are getting interesting.
Well, yeah.
We're talking about a place where owning a home can feel like winning the lottery.
Right.
I mean, the median home price in Santa Clara County is a cool $1.5 million.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how remote work is definitely like shaking things up.
Yeah.
But it's not the only factor. We're seeing like a whole mix of trends.
Uh,
People want different things in homes
all
now.
right.
There's limited housing supply, and then of course like the allure of Silicon Valley itself.
Right.
It's a pretty complex puzzle.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, are we seeing a mass exodus of like tech workers fleeing to cheaper pastures?
Yeah.
All those headlines about folks packing up and heading to Austin, Boise, Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Places where you can actually afford a decent backyard
Yeah.
without needing a venture capitalist on speed dial.
Right. Well, there's definitely been movement, but
Yeah.
mass exodus might be overstating it. So tech workers are seeking out greener pastures, but a lot of them are choosing to stay in the region.
Oh,
They're just moving to more affordable suburbs within driving distance of the major tech hubs.
yeah.
So, it seems like that pull of Silicon Valley is still strong,
Yeah.
even if it means stretching their budget.
That makes you think about what people are actually looking for in a home these days,
Yeah.
right? Like, is it still all about being close to the Googleplex, or are those priorities shifting?
Well, the pandemic definitely accelerated a shift that was already happening.
Okay.
People want home offices, they
Mhm.
want outdoor space, a connection to nature,
Wow.
basically a home that can support like a more balanced lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, that idea of a long commute to a massive office building 5 days a week
Yeah.
is becoming less and less appealing.
I see what you mean. So with all this happening, with people rethinking priorities and remote work shaking things up,
Hmm.
are we seeing a real impact on housing prices? Like, are homes suddenly becoming, dare I say, affordable?
Oh, that is the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the answer isn't so straightforward.
Okay.
The high-end market, especially in those ultra-expensive enclaves, is showing signs of cooling down.
Uh-huh.
But for the average person looking for a place to call home, prices are still stubbornly high.
Okay, so what's keeping those prices up? Is it just good old-fashioned supply and demand?
Supply and demand is definitely a huge factor. There's just not enough housing to meet the demand,
Right.
even with some people relocating. And then there's the issue of building restrictions.
Okay.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
The need for more housing is bumping up against all these rules and regulations that limit what can be built and where.
So even if remote work is giving some people the flexibility to live further out,
Right.
those limited housing options are kind of keeping a lid on things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a tug of war between these new possibilities and the realities of the market.
Exactly. And let's not forget the psychological factor.
Right.
Silicon Valley has this reputation for being the place to be for tech innovation and success.
Right.
And that perception, even if it's changing, still drives demand and keeps prices inflated.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
The more people believe that Silicon Valley is the only game in town,
Right.
the more they're willing to pay to be a
Mm.
part of it. But what about renters?
Uh-huh.
Are they feeling any relief in this shifting landscape?
There have been some positive signs for renters.
There.
Vacancy rates are creeping up in certain areas, and landlords are starting to offer concessions to attract tenants.
Like what?
Things like a month of free rent or reduced deposits.
Oh,
We've even seen some landlords converting their short-term rentals back to long-term leases,
okay.
which adds to the available inventory.
That's got to be welcome news for anyone who's been battling those insane San Francisco rents.
Yeah.
But even if things are easing up a bit, we're still talking about a region with some of the highest rents in the country, right?
Absolutely. The rental market is still incredibly competitive, especially in those highly desirable areas close to the major tech hubs.
Yeah.
But even a slight shift in favor of renters is noteworthy in a market that's been so landlord-driven for so long.
Okay, so we've got this picture of a market in transition.
Yeah.
Remote work is shaking things up. Buyer preferences are evolving, but prices are still holding strong.
Mm-hmm.
So let's zoom out a bit. What does all this mean for the future of Silicon Valley itself?
Right.
Will it continue to be the undisputed heart of the tech world?
That's the big question everyone's grappling with. It's
Yeah.
really too early to say for sure, but it's clear that Silicon Valley is at a crossroads.
Okay.
This whole shift towards remote work is forcing companies to rethink how they operate how they attract talent, and even where they choose to locate their offices.
So instead of everyone being clustered in those massive office campuses,
Right.
we might see a more distributed tech landscape with companies and workers spread out across a wider range of locations.
Yeah.
It's like the traditional model is being turned on its head.
And this shift will inevitably impact the physical landscape of Silicon Valley. What happens to all those office buildings designed for a pre-pandemic world where everyone commuted in 5 days a week?
Right.
Repurposing those spaces to meet the needs of a changing workforce?
Yeah.
It's going to be a major challenge, but it also presents a huge opportunity.
So it's like Silicon Valley is being forced to reinvent itself. But will it be able to hold on to its crown as the global center of tech innovation? Or will other tech hubs rise to challenge its dominance?
That's the million-dollar question, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
What's clear is that Silicon Valley will need to adapt to this new reality.
Okay.
Attracting and retaining top talent in a world where people can work from anywhere is going to require more than just competitive salaries. The cost and availability of housing, the quality of life, the overall appeal of the region.
Right.
All of these factors will play a crucial role in shaping its future.
So it's not just about being the place where the next big tech breakthrough happens.
Yeah.
It's about creating a place where people actually want to live and work, where they can build a life that's both fulfilling and affordable.
Precisely. And that might mean embracing a more balanced approach, one that prioritizes not just innovation and economic growth, but also sustainability, inclusivity, and the well-being of the community as a whole.
Okay, so we've got this tension brewing between the allure of Silicon Valley and the desire for a more balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like this tug of war is playing out against a backdrop of evolving work patterns and this crazy competitive housing market.
Yeah.
But let's dive a bit deeper into one specific aspect that really caught my eye in the research.
Okay.
The potential impact on those bustling downtown areas,
Right.
especially in cities like San Jose.
Ah, yes. That's a critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
As more people embrace remote work and choose to live in the suburbs or even further out, we have to consider what happens to those urban centers that traditionally relied on a huge influx of workers every day.
It's like that classic image of a downtown core buzzing with activity during the day, then turning into a ghost town at night.
Yeah.
Could that be changing in a fundamental way?
It's definitely a possibility, and that raises concerns about the economic vitality of these areas.
Okay.
Reduced foot traffic means fewer people spending money at local businesses,
Right.
your shops, your restaurants, your cafes,
Yeah.
which can have a ripple effect throughout the entire urban ecosystem. And then there's the impact on city budgets. Lower tax revenues can strain city services, making it harder to maintain infrastructure, fund public transportation, and provide essential services.
So it's not just about empty office buildings. It's about the potential domino effect
Yeah.
that could impact the entire fabric of these urban centers. It's like a whole ecosystem being disrupted.
You hit the nail on the head, and this is where urban planners and policymakers are facing a real dilemma. How do you adapt a city designed for a pre-pandemic office-centric world to the realities of a more distributed workforce?
Right.
It's like trying to rewrite the rules of the game while the game is still being played.
That sounds like a monumental challenge.
It is.
It's like they're trying to navigate a maze with a constantly shifting layout. But are there any potential solutions or strategies that are being explored?
There are some innovative ideas on the table.
Like what?
Converting empty office spaces into housing is one option that's gaining traction.
Oh, interesting.
It's a way to address the dual challenges of surplus commercial real estate and the need for more affordable housing options.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like turning lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
Taking these empty office buildings and transforming them into something that actually meets the needs of the community.
Exactly. And there's also a lot of focus on improving public transit systems, making it easier for people to get around without relying on cars. Not only can this reduce traffic congestion, but it can also make suburban and exurban areas more accessible and appealing to those who might otherwise be drawn to the city center.
So it's about creating a more interconnected and accessible region, acknowledging that people may be living and working in a wider range of locations. It's like creating a web of connections rather than relying on that old hub and spoke model.
Precisely. And there's also a growing emphasis on mixed-use development,
Okay.
creating neighborhoods where people can live, work, and play without having to travel long distances.
Uh,
Think vibrant communities with a mix of residential, commercial, and recreational spaces, all within walking distance.
it sounds like the goal is to create these self-contained, vibrant communities
Yeah.
that reduce the need for those soul-crushing commutes and foster a stronger sense of local identity.
That's the idea, and these efforts are not just about addressing the challenges of remote work.
Right.
They're also about creating a more sustainable and livable region for everyone. It's about thinking long-term and building a Silicon Valley that's resilient and adaptable to the changes that lie ahead.
So it's about taking this disruption as an opportunity to rethink urban design
Mm-hmm.
and create a more equitable and resilient future for Silicon Valley. It's like they're hitting the reset button
Yeah,
and asking, how can we make this place better for everyone, not just the tech elite?
absolutely. It's about embracing change and using it as a catalyst for positive transformation. It's about recognizing that the future of Silicon Valley is not just about technology, it's about people.
And speaking of people, let's shift gears for a moment and bring it back to the individual.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for someone who's considering buying a home in Silicon Valley right now?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good time to jump into this market, or is it better to wait and see how things shake out?
That's a great question, and I think the key takeaway for potential home buyers is that the market is still in a state of flux. While some areas are seeing price adjustments, the overall market remains incredibly competitive, especially for those seeking affordable options.
So doing your homework and really thinking about your budget and long-term goals is more important than ever.
Absolutely.
It's not just about snagging a deal, it's about making a sound investment.
And it's crucial to understand the dynamics of specific neighborhoods and how they're being impacted by these broader trends.
Okay.
Some areas may be more resilient to the effects of remote work,
Yeah.
while others may see more significant shifts in pricing and demand.
Mhm.
Working with a knowledgeable real estate agent who understands the nuances of the local market can be invaluable in this situation.
It's like trying to read the tea leaves, right? Trying to figure out which way the market is going to swing.
Yeah,
But it sounds like getting expert advice is key to navigating this uncertain terrain.
definitely. And beyond the purely financial aspects, potential buyers should think about their lifestyle preferences
Okay.
and how they align with the evolving character of different communities.
Right.
What are their priorities?
Yeah.
Do they value walkability, access to nature, a vibrant social scene, or a more quiet and suburban setting?
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about finding the right fit for your life, for your values, for the way you want to live and work.
Exactly. And that might mean considering locations that were previously overlooked or exploring new options that are emerging as remote work reshapes the landscape of Silicon Valley.
Okay.
It's a time for both caution and opportunity, a time to challenge assumptions and be open to new possibilities.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
From the impact of remote work on housing demand to the potential transformation of urban centers and the changing needs of potential home buyers.
Mm.
But before we jump into the next part of our deep dive, we want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay. If the shift toward remote work becomes like the norm,
Mm-hmm.
will Silicon Valley go from being a place you have to be for tech to a place people choose to be?
Oh, wow.
And what could that shift mean for the very culture of innovation that's defined Silicon Valley for decades?
Oh, that's a great question. Because right now there's this feeling that if you're serious about tech, about startups, about being in that whole ecosystem of investors and energy,
Yeah.
you got to be in Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
right? But if that changes, what happens to that feeling, that necessity?
It would be a turning point for homeowners, for sure.
Yeah.
Imagine Silicon Valley's mystique fades a bit.
Okay.
Suddenly, those sky-high property values might not seem so justified.
Oh.
People might not be willing to pay a king's ransom for a house
Yeah.
if their job isn't tying them to the region.
Whoa, okay, so we're talking about a scenario where, get this,
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley's housing market becomes normal.
Yeah.
Like it's subject to the same ups and downs as any other desirable location,
Right.
not just driven by the tech frenzy.
It's not outside the realm of possibility,
Okay.
but it would require a massive shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Not just for the people living there, but
Yeah.
for policymakers, developers, the whole tech industry, really.
Right, because right now there's this huge disconnect between what housing costs
Yeah.
and what most people can realistically afford. And honestly, we haven't even touched on how this impacts diversity and inclusion in tech.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The insane cost of living has always been a barrier for for people from diverse backgrounds.
Mm.
Trying to break into the tech scene, if Silicon Valley truly wants to be more inclusive,
Yeah.
tackling housing affordability is non-negotiable.
It's almost like a giant social experiment, right?
Yeah.
Can Silicon Valley evolve to become a place where talent thrives,
Right?
regardless of background or how much money they have? Or will it become even more exclusive?
Right.
Just the playground for the super rich?
Those are some seriously weighty questions.
Yeah.
And honestly, the answers depend on so many things.
Okay.
What the government does, what companies prioritize, individual choices, and of course, how the tech industry itself keeps changing.
Yeah.
It's a lot to untangle.
It's like Silicon Valley is at this crossroads.
Mm.
Stick to the old ways, trying to recapture that initial magic, or embrace change and forge a new path forward.
And that new path might mean accepting a more spread out model of innovation.
Okay.
Talent doesn't have to be concentrated in one place anymore. It could be flourishing all over the world.
So instead of Silicon Valley being the center,
Right.
it becomes one part of a global network of innovation hubs, each one with its own strength,
Yeah.
its own flavor.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And honestly, that could be really good for Silicon Valley in the long run. A more
Sure, yeah.
diverse, more resilient tech ecosystem that's not so reliant on any one location or company.
It's like that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread the risk, spread the talent, and you end up with something stronger and more adaptable.
Couldn't put it better myself that adaptability is going to be essential.
Yeah.
As tech keeps evolving at warp speed,
Right.
the companies and the regions that can roll with the punches,
Mhm.
foster that constant innovation, those are the ones that are going to thrive in the future.
So what does this mean for the future of work in Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Are those sprawling office campuses going to become like relics of a bygone era? Empty monuments to the way things used to be?
I think the days of everyone commuting to a central office 5 days a week are definitely numbered.
Okay.
But I don't think the office is going away completely.
Yeah.
It's more about reimagining its purpose, what role it plays.
So instead of being the place where work gets done,
Yeah.
it becomes more of a hub for collaboration, creativity. Those face-to-face connections you can't quite replicate online.
Exactly. Think brainstorming sessions, team building client meetings, maybe even some fun social events.
Okay.
But the day-to-day work the heads down stuff that could happen from anywhere with a decent internet connection.
Which brings us back to that idea of choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not chained to an office 5 days a week,
Right.
you have more freedom to choose where you live.
Yeah.
Maybe prioritize affordability, lifestyle, being close to family, things like that.
And that shift in mindset could have a huge ripple effect on the real estate market.
Okay.
If being close to a specific office isn't the top priority anymore,
Yeah.
demand for housing in Silicon Valley could shift dramatically.
So maybe those more affordable suburbs with their bigger houses and backyards become even hotter properties than they already are.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility.
Kind of a role reversal.
And it could lead to a revitalization of communities that were previously overlooked, seen as too far from the action.
So instead of that super concentrated model,
Yeah.
we're talking about a network of interconnected communities, each with its own unique character and vibe.
Precisely. And that evolution could lead to a more vibrant, more diverse region overall.
Okay.
One that offers a wider range of housing options and lifestyle choices.
Speaking of evolving and new choices, one trend that caught my eye is the whole co-living thing that's popping up.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Co-living is definitely an interesting concept, and it's gaining traction, especially among young professionals and folks in the startup world. It's like a modern twist on communal living,
Okay.
sharing common areas and amenities, but still having your own private space.
So kind of like a dorm for grown-ups, but with way better amenities and like a focus on building a community.
Exactly. And there are a lot of reasons why it's appealing.
Like what?
Flexible lease terms, all-inclusive rent that covers utilities and all those extras.
Okay.
And a built-in social network, it can make the transition to a new city a lot smoother.
It's like a soft landing, especially for people new to the area or those who are looking for a more social living experience.
Exactly. And let's be real, co-living can be a lot more affordable than renting a traditional apartment,
Okay.
especially in pricey areas like Silicon Valley.
So it's a potential win-win, right?
Yeah.
Residents get a more affordable and social living situation,
Mm-hmm.
and developers can get creative with their spaces and potentially see better returns.
That's the idea. And as that line between work and life keeps blurring, thanks to remote work, co-living could become even more appealing. It offers that blend of private and communal spaces.
Okay.
that really caters to the way people are living and working these days.
It's like that whole co-working trend.
Right.
But for where you live,
Exactly.
you have your own space to focus or unwind, but then you have these shared areas for collaboration, socializing, or just taking a break from your home office.
Right on. And a lot of these co-living spaces have extra amenities like gyms, laundry, even on-site cafes and restaurants,
Wow.
which adds to that convenience and sense of community. It's not just about having a roof over your head.
Yeah.
It's about a whole lifestyle package.
So it's not just about affordability.
Right.
It's about catering to the needs and preferences of a whole new generation of tech workers and entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're looking for something different, something that fits their lifestyle.
You got it. And as the demand for more flexible and community-oriented living options grows,
Yeah.
we're going to see even more innovative co-living concepts popping up, not just in Silicon Valley, but all over.
It's like we're witnessing the evolution of housing in real time, driven by tech, by changing work patterns, by how people want to live their lives. It's pretty wild to think about.
It really is. And as we keep exploring this future of housing, we have to consider how these trends impact not just individuals, but the entire community, the region as a whole.
Because ultimately the goal is to create a housing ecosystem that's not just innovative and adaptable,
Right.
but also equitable and sustainable one that makes sure everyone has access to safe, affordable, and desirable places to live.
Well said. It's about fostering a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Creating a community that supports the well-being of everyone who calls it home.
Okay, we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
Remote work's impact the rise of co-living, the potential transformation of those downtown areas.
It's been quite a journey exploring the forces that are shaping the future of housing in Silicon Valley.
And as we wrap up this part of our discussion, we want to leave you with a few key takeaways to mull over.
The Silicon Valley housing market is in a state of flux. Remote work changing preferences, the constant challenge of affordability, it's a lot to juggle.
That old model of everyone clustered around tech hubs.
Right.
It's being challenged. We're moving towards a more distributed, decentralized landscape of innovation.
The choices individuals, companies, and policymakers make in the next few years, they're going to have a huge impact on housing in Silicon Valley and beyond.
And as we navigate this uncharted territory, we can't forget about equity and sustainability.
Right.
Solutions that benefit the whole community, not just a select few.
Because the goal is a vibrant and inclusive region, one where everyone has the chance to thrive, no matter their income background or lifestyle.
Yeah, before we dive into the final part of our deep dive, here's one last thought to ponder.
If Silicon Valley wants to not just survive, but really thrive in this new world of remote work and flexible living, what role does it need to play on the global stage? Does it become more specialized, focusing on certain niches within tech? Or can it hold on to that generalist hub status, attracting talent and money from all over the tech spectrum?
That's such a key question, because Silicon Valley isn't just defined by being where the internet took off or where the biggest tech companies have their headquarters, right? It's about a culture that's built up over decades, that risk-taking, that venture capital scene, the way people collaborate. So how does that evolve to stay relevant when the landscape is changing so fast?
I think it's about recognizing what Silicon Valley is truly good at and leaning into those strengths. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, maybe it becomes the global leader in specific fields.
Okay, like what?
Think artificial intelligence, biotech, sustainable energy, places where it already has a head start.
So almost like a magnet for a very specific kind of talent. Creating an ecosystem where the best minds in those fields just have to be there because that's where the energy is, that's where the breakthroughs are happening.
Exactly. And specialization doesn't mean cutting itself off from the rest of the world. Silicon Valley can still collaborate with other innovation hubs, share knowledge, attract investment from all over.
So it's about finding that balance. Specialization and global engagement, playing to its strengths, but staying open to partnerships and new ideas flowing in from everywhere.
Exactly. And this could actually make Silicon Valley even more attractive in the long run. Imagine being known as the place to be if you want to be on the cutting edge of AI or biotech or whatever that niche might be. It becomes a choice driven by passion and opportunity, not just necessity.
We've talked about specialization, global connections, but what about the people? How do they fit into all of this, ensuring Silicon Valley stays successful? It can't just be about lines of code and fancy gadgets, right?
You're so right. Tech is the driving force, sure, but at the end of the day, it's the people who make it all happen.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurs with those crazy, ambitious visions, the engineers who push the boundaries of what's possible, the investors who are willing to bet on the future, and the community leaders who create an environment where all of that can thrive.
It's like a sports team, right?
Yeah.
You can have the most talented individual players, but if they can't work together, if they don't have a good coach, a supportive environment,
Right.
they're not going to win the championship.
Love that analogy. Silicon Valley needs to keep attracting those top players,
Yeah.
but also create the conditions for them to flourish.
Okay.
And that means thinking beyond just salaries and stock options.
So it's not just about attracting people with the right skills.
Right.
It's about making them want to stay.
Yeah.
Building a place where they feel valued, connected,
Yeah,
where they can grow both personally and professionally.
absolutely. And that's where quality of life becomes so important.
Okay.
It's about having access to good, affordable housing, good schools for their kids, reliable transportation, a vibrant cultural scene, all the things that make a place feel like home, not just a place to punch the clock.
Have you ever heard that saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers?
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe people don't leave regions. They leave lifestyles that don't inspire them anymore.
Ooh, I like that it highlights how important it is to tell a compelling story
Yeah.
about what it means to be in Silicon Valley.
Right.
It's not just about the tech, it's about the whole experience.
So it's about selling a lifestyle that's stimulating, fulfilling, where people can chase their dreams, connect with others who get them,
Right.
and make a real difference in the world.
Exactly. Showcasing that human side of Silicon Valley, the creativity, the passion, the resilience, the community, all the things that make it special.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about the challenges, the opportunities, the different paths Silicon Valley could take.
It's been a fascinating journey for sure.
But as we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest takeaway is this.
What do you think it is?
Silicon Valley has always been about evolution. The impossible becoming possible.
Right.
And in this new era, with remote work, with all this amazing tech emerging, with society itself shifting, the question isn't if Silicon Valley will change.
Yeah.
It's how W.
Will it cling to the past or embrace the future, specialize, or stay a generalist hub? Will it prioritize the human element or become an exclusive playground for the super rich?
These are the questions that are going to shape Silicon Valley's destiny.
They really are.
Will it remain that global center of innovation and inspiration, or fade into a memory of what once was and the answers? Those are going to be determined by the choices individuals, companies, and leaders make in the years to come.
It's a fascinating time to be watching it all unfold.
So as you keep following this story of Silicon Valley, we encourage you to keep asking these questions. Challenge assumptions, explore different points of view, be part of the conversation about what the future holds, because the story of Silicon Valley is far from over.
Definitely not.
In fact, you could say it's just beginning.
And who knows what incredible innovations, what groundbreaking discoveries, what world-changing ideas are going to come out of this amazing, ever-evolving ecosystem.
Well said. That's what makes it so exciting to be a part of.